What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Weisz.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. You know, Kasim, I had 2 teeth taken out, so I'm wearing a retainer. So I have like a lispy sound. So that's where that comes from. So people
Makes
don't
you
know.
sound smarter.
My first 2, my top 2 teeth, when I hit a rollerblading accident, I face planted, and so I don't have those. So I'm getting surgery. But I just roll through whatever. So one thing I do want to mention, Kasim, I'm going to formally introduce Kasim Aslam in a second of Solutions 8. You can check out his website at sol8.com. But Kasim, I always like to mention other episodes people should check out of the podcast, and Ralph Burns, Tier 11, who you know well. He's your partner in crime of the podcast Perpetual Traffic, and Ian Garlic of videocasestory.com, who made sure this happened today. Is just a great human being. So check both those episodes out on InspiredInsider.com. And before I formally introduce Kasim, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We help you run your podcast. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way to do that than to profile the people and companies I most admire on this planet and profile and feature them on my podcast. And I've been doing that for over a decade now. And so I think if you have a business, you should have a podcast. Kasim would probably agree with that. And if you have questions, go to rise25.com or email us support@rise25.com. I am excited to introduce Kasim Aslam. Is the founder and CEO of Solutions 8, which is a top-ranked Google ad agency. He's a traffic coach for Digital Marketer, elite coaching program. He's been hand-selected by Ryan Dice and their team to help create Digital Marketer's paid traffic certification. He's a co-host of Perpetual Traffic, which is one of the top marketing podcasts. And also, we'll talk about DrivenMastermind.com, which Kasim is a part of. And so if you are a high-level entrepreneur that wants to grow, you'll be able to check out DrivenMastermind.com. And Kasim, thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Solutions 8 and what you do.
We're the best Google Ads agency on the planet. We're also exceedingly humble.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Jokes aside, I like to tell everybody that I'm the world's greatest failure because I've failed at everything twice. And the interesting thing about Google Ads is it rewards ongoing and intentional failure, which is why I think we got really, really good, because 95% of all online ads fail, roughly speaking. So
we call it testing, right? Testing,
yeah, exactly
failure.
Right. Testing with heavy air quotes. And so we've been able to kind of crack the code on a lot of things that, as of yet, I don't know have been cracked. Specifically Google's new product, Performance Max, which it's the most disruptive thing I've ever seen in the world of digital marketing. And for some weird reason, people don't want to talk about it. Agencies are kind of hiding from it, which I think is interesting and also very telling.
We were talking before we hit record, and one of the things that's on your mind is the future of traffic.
Media buyers are going to have to experience a paradigm shift that's tectonic in nature, or they're going to be irrelevant. Buying traffic used to be driving a Formula One race car. You're going 250 miles an hour, you're making micro adjustments second by second, and you're really in control. Buying traffic now is interstellar space travel at the speed of light. You don't get to drive the spaceship. You tell the spaceship where to go, you give it your parameters, you serve it, feed it, monitor it, but you have to take your hands off the wheel. And that's a pretty easy thing to say conceptually. It's an easy concept to grasp. But what's funny is then you throw somebody behind the ads dashboard and there's just like instinct takes over and they start tweaking and playing. And there has been an event horizon on the horizon, if I can be redundant here for just a minute, where AI truly takes over. And we've reached the point where with human influence, the machine does the work. And that's terrifying for a lot of people. So terrifying that I happen to have insight into two of the largest agencies on the planet, 9-figure valuation agencies, massive spend under management. Their internal discussion has been, we're not going with Performance Max because we don't have the control and we don't like the reporting. And it's funny, man, because they're a horse and buggy manufacturer, and they're not willing to switch over to the automobile because they just don't like the way that it works. And like it or not, this is it. This is it. And what's funny is I think I'm 24 months ahead of the curve. So if you're listening to this right now, go play with Performance Max. And a lot of people are being really dismissive. I've had people say, "Oh, it's Google Ads Express all over again. It's only selling brand. It's only display. It's, you know," and I think it's going to be, I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, Jeremy. I think it's going to be 10 times as impactful as when Facebook added ads to the newsfeed. It's going to be a category kingmaker on every level of analysis. And then it's going to usurp and unseat a lot of incumbents. And I'm kind of excited to see that too, to be honest with you.
I've heard you say, Kasim, that if something pops up like Google suggests, you don't do that, right?
Google's recommendations are
Google recommendations, right? Yeah.
Google's recommendations are a red flag that you're about to be taken advantage of. I'll give you a really specific example. When you build a Google ad campaign, Google asks you to define a geographic region. And then they have a very hidden setting. As a matter of fact, in Performance Max, sometimes it's not available at all. They have a hidden setting that says, there's a radio button that says you're targeting people in or interested in this location. And that says, in brackets, recommended. Here's the problem. There are way more people interested in any geography than there are people in that geography. That's a fact. So you want people in or regularly in this location. And I can tell you, I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet for 7 years. We minted money. We're talking, like Sell My House Fast, Home Investors types. The thing that set us apart, Jeremy, was knowing that button. Because Google defaults to people in or interested in, which means you're generating irrelevant leads. And when your lead is $1,500, that margin for error is huge. It's huge. And it's little teeny tiny things like that. When I don't buy my course because it's out of date, but my Google Ads course was called You versus Google. And that's the way to think about it. Google doesn't have your best interest at heart. Google's not trying to help you be successful. They're trying to maximize the value of their inventory. So their recommended settings, more often than not, are in their favor. Now, sometimes there's a parallel course. Sometimes they're in your favor and in their favor and your favor, but not always. And so it's really worth thinking those things through and then testing them. And, to, again, maybe get a little arrogant, listen to the people that have already made those mistakes. I've got 200 accounts under management. We managed $54 million in ad spend. I've done it, been there, and all my education is available for free.
The reason it made me think of that, Kasim, is that when you mentioned the AI and, getting on the car instead of the horse, when I see something like Google suggests, it almost has the perception to me that there's some AI involved, right? They figured it out, so just let them handle it. But that was my perception of it, right?
Well, that's true. I think that's the correct perception is Google is using machine learning in order to make strong recommendations. But it's interesting that there's a line of demarcation because so much about Google is a black box. So Google will do things within the black box that you have no control over. But then it carves out these other facets of campaign management, and it wants your opinion, or it wants your permission. And I almost think that's it's manipulative. It's gaslighting. Because they almost realize, like, okay, at this point, we're in the ballpark of actually taking money from you, and before we can do that, we need you to hit the button. It's like when in Soviet Russia, when the communists used to force people to sign the confession before they tortured them, or you know what I mean? Like they had to have your participation in the system that was obviously against your best interests. And I hate to just paint Google with that evil brush, but that's what it feels like. It feels like we're being gaslit, taken advantage of in a way.
You mentioned in the beginning, and I've heard you say this before, about you've had a lot of failures, right? What sticks out to you as a big learning experience we'll say learning experience, failure. If you're saying failure, I'll say failure, but most of the time I'll say learning experience. I don't say, hey, you're a failure, Kasim. But what do you think back on one of those pivotal points that really shaped you?
I was 20 years old. I'd started a business. I was building software, and I was making more money than most 20-year-olds make. And I had no idea how to use money. So I had a big house on the hill. I had the asshole's car. I was, picking up the check everywhere I went. And my identity was wrapped up in the fact that I could do that. And when the economy collapsed, I realized, like, I don't own that house. The bank owns that house. I don't own that car. The bank, foreclosure, repossession, near bankruptcy, living in squalor, going to Costco on my expired card, eating free trouts to survive. It was bad. And it's because I didn't know how to play the game of money. And I think entrepreneurs need to get, I hate to go Dave Ramsey on you because there's some things he says that I disagree with. But dude, you should have your war chest. I don't have any debt. My wife and I drive Hyundais. The only reason I have a mortgage is because my CPA was like, you were missing out on a huge tax break with it, But I think that you should have. There's that John Goodman monologue from the Mark Wahlberg movie. You know what I'm talking about? Where he says, approach life from a point of FU. And basically have the foundation that allows you to take risks when you want to take them, to make investments when you want to make them, but to also weather any storm, because the flood is always coming, to quote Jordan Peterson, always. And if you're not ready for it, it's so easy to be like, gosh, and it's so unfair. I never saw that coming. And I want to take that excuse away from you right now. There is something, sadly, God forbid, something catastrophically damaging is going to happen to you, the economy, the business, your industry. I don't know what, but it guaranteed on a long enough timeline, probably dozens of things. And there are some people that are equipped to take them and some people that aren't. And I was ill-equipped to take it, and it almost destroyed me. But I'm so happy it happened so early, because now, man, there's some things I might not be able to survive, but I'm effectively a prepper at this point. Sans the zombie apocalypse, there's very little you could do to take me down.
One of the things that I really love, you do a full video on this, so I encourage people to check out about hiring. And it's going to be a good video when you start off with, I'm not sure if I want to share all this, right? So I want to hear your thoughts on offshore hiring.
Yeah. So I've got 80 employees, and I love them all dearly and deeply. And one of the things that people always say when they get exposed to Solutions 8, they're like, where do you find these people? They're flabbergasted. The only thing I've really done well is just find people smarter than me and then convince them to come work with me. But I have a hiring system that I call the Pareto talent system, and it's built over the course of 15 years of just making massive mistakes. And I won't go through it on the call because you can watch the video. It's not gated, but the gist is I pay more than anybody's willing to pay in that ecosystem. So in the Philippines, for instance, a full-time VA can get about $500-600, $700, $800 or $100 if they're good. I pay $1,500. I double it, but I make them jump through an insane amount of hoops, and I make sure that they're a badass. And then I treat them well. I treat them like a real life human being. And I make sure that they feel involved and incentivized. And what's funny is so many people, when they offshore, they think that this is, we're going to go find somebody to do the grunt work, the data entry, the whatever. My CTO was a EA that I found, and he lived, he's from Ukraine. The gal that was my EA, Julianne, is now our director of automations. Like, I have found the most amazing talent, and they just lost the geographic lottery. We like to be, and I'm not so sorry, I'm about to jump on a soapbox, but it's an important one. If you were born here, like, you didn't do it. I hate it when people are like, I'm proud to be an American. I'm grateful to be an American. You know what I mean? Like, thank God. And I'm not just talking about the US, US, Canada, UK, whatever. But if you're born in like Karachi, Pakistan, or Uganda, or, the Philippines or whatever, you are at a noted disadvantage. You're at a noted disadvantage. You did nothing wrong. You lost the geographic lottery, but like my EA dude could be the CEO of any Fortune 1000 company. She is a freaking genius. Poor girl was just born on the wrong side of an arbitrary line. So don't think for a second that talent doesn't exist elsewhere, because it does. You're just not paying for it properly, and you're asking for too much. People that go offshore, they're like, oh, I need somebody that knows web, graphic design, PPC, SEO, can make cold calls. And I'm like, what person do you know that lives here can do all that BS? You know what I mean? That would want to work for you. Like, maybe there's an entrepreneur out there that's a Swiss Army knife, but if you want a high value employee, go get an ultra specific job description, be very clear about your expectations, pay them something that's exciting to them, and you're going to find, and I've gone everywhere. I'm on literally basically every functional continent now. It's unreal, the talent pool that's available. And then it's unreal what they bring to the table when you actually allow them to take things and run with them. I have a young man who works for me. His name's Efe. He's in Turkey, and he stalked us on our YouTube channel to come work with me. And the kid keeps coming to me and talking about, I want to open alternative ad channels. We don't manage Facebook. We don't manage Instagram. We don't manage, there's huge opportunities here for Solutions 8. And I haven't taken him up on it yet, but I'm going to at some point. And it's interesting because he would be dismissed by a more traditional agency as, oh, he's an offshore resource. He's a VA. He's a leader, man. He's so much smarter than I am, so much more industrious than I am. So, you know what I mean? Like, just born on the wrong side of an arbitrary line. And I'm not trying to diminish people's culture or countries. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just talking about the economic reality of having the reserve currency and the fact that the US dollar is just going to go enslave everybody. And we benefit from that. And in so doing, I think you as an entrepreneur, number one, have access to a talent pool that most people don't realize that's readily accessible. And number two, have the opportunity to change lives. I can pay double, triple, quadruple, and I can afford to do that. And I can afford to do that at scale. What would happen to you if you got paid 4x your peers? Like, what kind of quality of life impact does that have? I've got people in Mexico and Venezuela and even Canada, man. If I pay 50 grand US, that's like 65 Canadian, and they're not worried about healthcare. So the world is flat as far as I'm concerned, and you can go get amazing talent everywhere. And I've got, I don't know what, 25 employees in India, and I had some guy, he's in the UK, I won't say his company name, even though I hate him. He wrote, it was the first bad review I've ever got in my entire life. I've been in business 15 years, and he wrote some review, and he's like, I hired Solutions 8, and then they just farmed me out to some Indian. And I'm like, you mean one of the smartest Google Ads people in the freaking world? I'm sorry that he's in India. Like, that sucks for you. And then I wrote him a really pointed email, and he deleted the review because he saw, I'm like, let me tell you about the kid that you just disparaged. So anyway, that got soapboxy too. I feel a little like I'm yelling here, man. I'm sorry, Jeremy. I'm really passionate about this one.
No, I love it. And I want to hear, what countries you mentioned a few. Are there any others that you look to go to? You mentioned India, Turkey, Venezuela, Ukraine, Philippines, Canada. Because I know on that particular video, you talk about Design Pickle, I think it was, and they like to go to the Philippines for design stuff. And what other countries should people maybe that they haven't thought of consider looking at? And I know it depends on the job, it depends on whatever, but
yeah. So for this gets a little, I'm going to get canceled here, Jeremy. You ready? I have found in my own personal experience that there are proficiencies that are, we'll say, geographically centered. So in the Philippines, you find really phenomenal creatives, graphic design, web design, video editing, those types of things. If you want the engineering types, I like South Asia, India and Pakistan. But as we're having this conversation, you have to understand that there are cultural nuances that need to be respected. So for instance, the Indians have more holidays than any group of humans I've ever experienced in my entire life. And they celebrate all of them, and they're all important. You'll also, with Indians and Pakistanis, if they tell you it will be done Friday at 2, it's Monday at 4. And you can either beat your head against a wall trying to move the cultural mountain that is their weird perception of time, or just account for it. Things like that. Filipinos can't say no. They're the least combative humans I've ever met in my entire life. So if you ask them to do something, they'll do it, and then they'll suffer in silence, and they won't tell you that you're asking for too much. Eastern Europeans can't do anything the wrong way. Try asking an Eastern European, like, hey, the client wants it done this way. Well, no, that's not right. We need to do it this way. Well, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. The client wants it. They won't do it. They will not, cannot. It's not in their frame of mind to do anything other than the way that they know it should be done. But they're brilliant. They're brilliant. I love South America, literally all of South, and not just South. I'll say Latin America, because basically anything south of Texas. Generally speaking, they're names that we can pronounce. They're accents that aren't repellent to your more racist clients. They're working our time zones. You have to pay a little bit more. Like, South American, if a good salary for a Filipino might be $1,500, in South America maybe it's $2,000 or whatever. And I'm not talking entry level. Entry level, you can get really phenomenal people for $1,000. And then you want to look at the individual countries too, and some of the nuances surrounding those countries. And then account for the fact that in the Philippines people get sick more often. Which is sad. It's a sad thing to say out loud. It's true in India and Pakistan too. People are going to get sick more often. You're going to have internet outages, power outages, acts of terrorism. This is all, but that's what happens when you go for discount labor. And that's shit that they have to deal with. And then you have, again, what a phenomenal opportunity that is for you to step in and help somebody. So I don't know.
Yeah, thanks for going through that. One of the things you mentioned in the process is you make them jump through hoops to see who's serious. So what would be an example of one or two of those?
Here's one of my favorite. I'll send you. So first of all, I pay to have them do a trial project, always, no matter what. And I pay in advance. And here's what happens to me. I'd say 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 times, depending on the role, they'll ghost me. So I'll say, what's your PayPal? And I'll send them $20. And then you never hear from them again. Now, this is actually, you might think to yourself, well, gosh, it's $200 a hire because it's the short list that's getting the trial project. But what a phenomenal opportunity that is to find out you're a piece of shit before I hire you. I just paid $20 because now here's somebody who's going to access to client lists and programs and applications, and they're going to represent me. So I'd love to pay $20 to find out that you're willing to, sacrifice the opportunity for a great job just because you found an easy $20. So I pay them to do this trial project. I also do that because I want them to know I respect their time. Because the other issue is the fact that I am paying as much as I'm paying. What I get a lot of people thinking is this is a scam or it's not real or I'm going to take advantage of them or something. So pay them to do a trial project, but then I make it hard. So I'll do something like I'll say, oh, log into this Canva account. Here's the username and password. I'll give them the wrong password. And then I wait to see how long it takes for them to figure it out. Because if they tell me, I also don't tell them when it's due. I'll say, when do you think you can get this done? Can they manage expectations? Can they communicate? And they'll say, oh, Friday at noon. Well, if I get an email Friday at 10 saying, hey, the Canva password's wrong, kind of know you're a procrastinator. Like there's so just little things. I want to see not just can you do the job, because that's actually pretty easy to find, generally speaking, especially if you're niche down enough in your job description. How do you communicate? I like to schedule an appointment and then cancel it last minute. Do you get mad at me? Do you get pissy? How do you feel if you know what I mean? Like, hey, so sorry, how to reschedule. Do you even follow up? That's another thing that I've run into is, can you run through walls? If I make this hard, can you still get the job done? And if you can, are you just the type of person who's like, oh, I've got a really good excuse?
Love it. From a culture perspective, right? You have people all over the map.
Yep.
How do you maintain that company culture?
It's hard. It's hard. What I've started to do is be a little more distributed within specific departments. So I'll give you my skunk, which is a large majority of my Google Ads specialists are in India, because Google has 3 offices in India, and I just go poach Google's people, and they're brilliant and they're industrious and they're hardworking. But you take a company of 80 people, 25 of them are Indian. This is the lunchroom in high school, dude. Like people sit next to people that are like them, and they talk to people that speak their language and understand their culture and eat the same. You know what I mean? So it's just a natural inclination for, herd mentality for people to kind of clump, like with like. And so what I'm doing now is, I've my Google Ads specialist, I've got one that we just hired from Colombia and one that we hired from, I forget where she is. She might be from Brazil, but I'm splitting it up. And when you do that, the culture that is adopted is the company culture, because sans, indoctrinated birth culture, you need to grasp onto something, and then the company culture becomes much, much, much more accessible.
One thing, Kasim, that I see that you do, which is really interesting, if you go to the website, is, I'm going to pull it up here so we can take a look at it. One piece of company culture is you have a employee spotlight page.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted people to feel important, and people that are used to offshore jobs are used to not feeling like they're really a part of the team. And so we go through, and every single employee, as long as what got kind of sad is, we'd write a spotlight blog on somebody right away, and then we end up letting them go. And it's like, well, do we take it off? So I think they have to have been with us for 6 months. I forget what the marketing department decided. But there's a spotlight on everybody, and we want people to get to know them. It also helps with the humanization. Like if you're going to work with somebody offshore and I'm going to assign them to your account, everybody has, and I'm not talking about unconscious bias training here, Jeremy, because I don't believe in some of the more woke bullshit, but everybody really does have a level of prejudice that I think we don't necessarily recognize. There's a quote by Sojourner Truth that I really love, which is, we're all victims of our own experience. Nobody can eliminate prejudice, only recognize it. So if you feel some type of way because you've had way too many call center calls from somebody in India, I don't blame you. Maybe I feel that way too. But if I send you an article and say, hey, here's Ankar. Ankar's 23 years old. He loves to play badminton, and he might be one of the smartest Google Ads strategists on the freaking planet. And here's a video of Unkar talking about it. Now, I think I just broke down that wall. It's just humanizing your staff in a way that allows people to see a distributed team can still be a team.
Thank you. Yeah, because I feel like this is missing. A lot of people don't have this piece, and there's another part of your website I want to talk about, which is the pricing page, which is also I would venture to say atypical in the agency space in general. But I do want to start just to give people a better sense, a stronger sense of what you do over at Solutions 8. People can check out, obviously, there's a case studies page here. But there was one ecom brand that you worked with. I'd love for you to talk about what you did with them.
Yeah, so I can't use them by name, sadly. However, we were able to achieve and maintain. That's a really important part, because everybody likes to pull out their case study and be like, oh, I spent $4 and made $1 billion this weekend. You know what I mean? But we were able to achieve and maintain a 15,000% return on ad spend. 15,000% return on ad spend. It was insane. It was literally minting money. The only reason it stopped is because they ran into supply chain issues. All their products were coming from China, and the containers stopped coming, and they're still having problems. Had they not run into that, I don't know where that campaign would have gone, but it would have been insane. And that's just, I can't even take all the credit for that. That's the power of Google Ads. When Google really learns who buys from you, especially if you're in a blue ocean industry, there's nothing that can stop it. It goes out and it finds more buyers.
Let's talk about your process for a second, but let's start with the pricing, right? So again, we're on, if you're listening to this right now, we are sharing a screen, which is sol8.com/pricing. And, they have a bunch of things about transparent pricing, no long-term contracts, complete ownership and control of your account. And if you could check this out, but if you scroll down, what's really unique about this page, at least Kasim, what I find unique about this page, I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but there's a calculator here. This is curious to find out what your fees look like. So there was a definite conscious thought of why even put this on there. Like, they could talk to you, you could do it, but there's this nifty slider that you can actually do. And it has, again, if you're just listening to this, first month, total fee with base, and fee as a percentage of spend. And so you can move this. This is add your monthly Google Ads budget below. And so I can add, if I'm going to spend whatever here, I can slide this around.
You can also type it into the field there.
Type it in here. So tell me about why I even put this on here and about this pricing calculator.
I believe marketing should attract and repel. And I think that if you really want to scale your agency, and some agencies don't want to scale, by the way, and that's okay. But if you really want to scale your agency, you should productize your service offering. I'm not the first person to say that. Jason talks about it a lot. If you can't price your offer, you haven't productized your service offering. That's a fact. I'd be open to somebody challenging me on that, but I can't think of an instance where that wouldn't be true. So I like making the pricing publicly available, because if I'm positioning my value proposition well enough and this prices me out of your market, well, that's great. I'm glad you know that. I'm glad I know that. And I was able to save us both some time. I think it's hubris to think like, oh, all I need to do is get you on the phone. Why? So I can talk you into something that you don't want to do. We're not salespeople. And we continue that narrative throughout. We do nothing but negative selling. Here's why this might not work. 50% of all Google Ads campaigns fail in the first 90 days. You're in a competitive ecosystem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I like people to know everything they need to know in order to make an educated decision. And what's funny is, Jeremy, I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, thank God you have this. I'm so grateful. Like, this made it so much. I'm going with you because just tell the truth. Those are our 3 core values at Solutions 8: truth, responsibility, love. The website says heart because love turns people off, but I mean love. Just tell the truth. Tell the truth about what it is. And if it's not right for them, that's okay. And if you're afraid about, maybe they don't understand the value, then fix that. That's not hard. Build the content. We live in the age of the educated consumer. They're going to consume the content if they're really interested in buying. So I'm pretty bullish on this point too. I don't think it makes sense not to include the pricing unless all you do is custom and bespoke.
Talk about, this pricing calculator. What's a typical customer? Someone, if they're, I'm going to spend, I don't know if maybe you do get startups that want to start slow and scale up, or maybe not. What is typical?
It's changed since I've grown. In the very beginning, we were so little and scrappy because we started from the literal ground up. But now that I've gotten a little nerd famous, we attract some larger companies and some larger names. Our minimum ad spend, to put it in perspective, used to be $3,000 a month. Now it's $10,000 a month. I will take clients under $10,000 a month, but in what we call our incubator program, and we only take them if we think there's a very strong opportunity. But $10,000 a month at my price range is $2,500. And $2,500 a month on a $10,000 spend is not inexpensive. That's 25% of your ad spend. However, there's nothing more expensive than a cheap media buyer, because I'm going to be able to amplify the value and the efficacy of your spend. So, and it gets way more efficient as you scale up. If you're spending $1 million with me, then, we're 4% of your ad spend. So, it's structured in a way that incentivizes growth. It ties us to the results that a client experiences. And so far, it's worked out really well. Sometimes I get people that just can't reconcile themselves with the fact that I make more money as they make more money. And, because they're right, there is an economy of scale, and I do improve efficiency. And it would be at some point, we could put a cap with just a small kicker, but I have a limited number of resources and bandwidth. So I want to grow too. And this is the best way that I think I can tie us to results without actually asking for equity.
Do you get people who, I don't know, in your world or in their agencies that offer equity?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I have so many freaking stock certificates in my filing cabinet that are freaking worthless. I'll take it. But we had a guy, I hope he never listens to this. We had a guy recently offer us 0.25% in exchange for free services. And I'm like, well, number one, you think very highly of your business. I needs to be a tax relevant sum of money. And I need to know that you're actually in it for the long haul. Because most of the people that offer equity, they don't believe in their business enough, or they wouldn't be offering equity, so it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario there. Yeah, I've got buddies that, play the performance-based game solely, and they do really well doing it, but it's a little stressful for me. And I don't know that it's a scalable model per se.
It's risky, I guess.
Yeah.
Talk about the referral program. How did you come up with the referral program? Because I know that you get a large number of referrals coming in from other people.
Yeah, our best clients come from referrals. Most of our clients come from Google Ads, obviously. We eat our own dog food, but our best clients come from referrals. And the referral program was a very natural evolution. People started sending us work, and some people ask, some people don't, but you always want to pay. I feel like in the agency world, pay first, pay more, pay often. People want to say, and don't stop paying either. Like people, I've seen agencies do like a one-time shot in the pocket thank you. You want them to see your name show up in their mailbox every month. That's another little pro tip. Don't automate your payments so that it hits their account without them seeing it. I know people hate snail mail and they hate checks because you actually have to go to the box and you have to get the envelope and you have to unwrap and then go to the bank. Make them do that. Send them a snail mail check, which you can automate on your end, but you want them to see a check come from you every single month because it's a month-by-month reminder of, oh yeah, this is what happens when I send clients to Solutions 8.
Love it. I wanted to, so after they hire you, what happens next as far as the onboarding goes? What are some things that you recommend and do?
This is also in my YouTube channel somewhere. I've got the most robust onboarding process of any agency I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm really, really proud of it. I'll chat this to you here, Jeremy, if you want to include it in the show notes or something. I call it the world's greatest onboarding process. Onboarding is your client's first real interaction with you. And it's the most painful process. So it sucks because it's like the worst thing happens at the worst time. And if you can streamline your onboarding, and I've been told multiple times, like, man, that was the most painless onboarding I've ever been through, then you have the opportunity to really wow your client and then move quickly into monetization, like actually make things happen. A lot of agencies, I feel, try to bring a lot of pomp and purpose to their onboarding in order to justify their high fees. That's flawed. You don't want clients to think things take long. People don't want to pay extra just because it's long. You actually want them to feel like, oh my goodness, y'all move fast. You're a well-oiled machine. You're super efficient. And so within our onboarding, We have something called the Go form. When you fill out the Go form, it goes into Airtable, and then Airtable alerts every member that's relevant on my team. Your dedicated client manager, strategist, and specialist get an alert saying a new client's coming. The dedicated onboarding manager gets an alert saying, please shepherd them through this process. The billing team gets an alert that says, create a record inside of QuickBooks, send the invoice, charge them for their first month. And then the client gets an invite to our onboarding portal, which we host inside of Tallyfy, Tallyfy. It's a SaaS product. I'm not an investor or an affiliate. I just love them dearly and deeply. And Tallyfy walks them through everything that we need access to in a sequential task list manner that then triggers my onboarding manager to check. So you give me access to your Google Analytics. She checks and confirms that we have access, because there's nothing more frustrating, to the point of my interview question, than somebody giving you access to something, you coming back 3 weeks later saying, hey, analytics doesn't work. And now the client goes, what the hell have you been doing this whole time? You know you've been working. And that wasn't necessary until just now, but you might as well make sure that there's a system of checks and balances. Also, we don't do an ounce of work until after onboarding is complete, because I've gotten into trouble so many times where it's like, oh yeah, I know you've got to go redeem your account or figure this out or whatever. It's okay. We'll start building. And then I end up in no man's land, to where I kind of have this half-built thing and I'm waiting on you and you're taking forever. And then I go put resources elsewhere and then you come and you're hot to trot. And it's always combative. And you never, ever, ever rewarded for that, ever. Stick to your guns. We don't start until onboarding. Well, oh no, we don't understand. Our biggest season is coming up and I got a huge event. I'm so sorry. I'm not the resource for you. I'm not there. I can't start until onboarding. Also, onboarding takes 5 to 7 business days. No, you don't understand. I just put a big ad out in the thing. I'm so sorry. I'm not the resource for you. Like, you just stick to your guns, stick to your guns, stick to your guns. And what ends up happening is they respect you for it. Don't let clients push you around, because they actually need to be coached. They need and want that discipline.
Thanks for that. Love it. Now, I figured it'd be fun, and I just sprung this on you right before, about to pull up something just to poke around and you kind of just show up, and we'll see now. So we'll see if this actually will work for us. But on the front end, what are you seeing here? When we look at, obviously there's a bunch of ads up here. I want to get inside your mind, Kasim, and what are you seeing here? Like,
yeah.
If by the way, if someone's listening to this and not looking at my screen, we see outreach.io, we see gong.io, we see justcalled.io, the DigiDeck, and actually and then we get into the not paid area. And Pipedrive is actually the first. Well, I have had one of the co-founders of Pipedrive on, but Pipedrive is the first non-ad related with the enterprise sales software. So congrats on your SEO with that.
Yeah, well done, Pipedrive. First thing that I noticed is you searched for enterprise sales software. Now, this is an unfair indictment, because so much of search ads are now fully automated. However, if we're going to play best practice, I'm going to ignore the fact that there might be some of this that's outside of everybody's control. So hopefully the traditionalists are going to like what I'm saying, but the people that know what they're talking about are going to just have to forgive me, because I'm looking at a search result, not looking at a Google ad campaign. If I was auditing a Google ad campaign, it'd be very, very, very different. That said, you search for enterprise sales software. I don't see the words enterprise sales software anywhere in this ad copy. I see invest in sales execution tech. It's not what I want. Revenue intelligence. The Gong is #1 revenue intelligence platform. Yeah, you said that. And that's probably dynamic ads, by the way. Sales automation platform, Just Call IO, 6,000 customers. If you search for something, give them what they searched for. It should be in the ad copy. It should be on the landing page. It should be in the call to action. And if it's not, then maybe you're reaching too far, or your semantic index is too broad. There's a strong neuroassociation to language, to consistency and continuity in language. And that's why salespeople are taught to pace. If you start speaking at a certain speed or volume, or you start using certain words, a good salesperson starts doing that too. And you might say like, oh, that's manipulative. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But there's a reason that it works. There's a psychological profile and connection that we're making, and they're missing out on doing that. So that's number one. Number two, I like what Outreach did here when they have the plus equals. When you use symbols, signs, numbers, things other than just text, it actually draws your eye. So you want to use that. The problem is they went off and said, maybe missing on a 9% of potential revenue. There's nothing compelling about 9% of potential revenue. Go find a better case study, fools. You know what I mean? Like, give me something tax relevant. I can tell right out of the gate. So here's the thing: is Outreach.io has the highest placement, and Google's based off of the victory auction model, which says the highest bidder wins the bid, but pays the second highest bidder's price. But highest bid includes money and relevance. So you'd assume outreach is relevant. And they also have some extensions shown here. One of the extensions, that's a site link extension that says pricing. Here's the problem. Bet money, Jeremy. If you click on pricing, they don't give you pricing.
I'm
If you click on pricing, they won't give you
that.
pricing. And you can even say request pricing today. That does nothing but piss me off. If you offer something, give it to them. Don't add a site link extension for pricing because you know people are interested in seeing your pricing and you don't actually give them the pricing. So ding against them. A note for them is download buyer's guide. I really like the fact that they have a transitional call to action. Sometimes I might say, hey, you're diluting the efficacy of your offer. For something like enterprise sales software, that's a long sales cycle. Nobody's clicking and buying today. So offering a transitional call to action right out of the gate, especially for somebody who might be doing an early stage search, is a good opportunity to capture an email address and then market to them in a silo. Gongs, I like the number one for revenue intelligence. I don't like the redundancy, but that's probably not their fault. They're not occupying a ton of real estate, these last 3 ads, but that might be Google too. None of the copy, none of this is compelling. There's nothing here that really makes me
I noticed
stop.
right away you really go after the copy.
Oh, well, you kind of have to. That's I mean, that's all we have to go off of.
Right.
They're not even using title case. Every letter, and actually the folks at the top, who's that again?
Outreach.io.
So you notice how outreach says, find out why your org and FOWYO are all capital. That's called title case. And when you do that, it A, occupies more real estate, and B, it draws your eye. None of the other 3 ads are using title case. Super small thing, but WordStream has a case study on how title case increases click-through rate, I think by 11% or something really substantial.
Wow.
I also like that outreach has a question, looking for outreach pricing, question mark. When somebody asks you a question, you're more likely to answer that question, even if it's just in your head. So, I think some of what's happening here is just poor, and I'm actually talking about the other 3 applications here. None of this copy is compelling. And that's all you have in a search ad is a copy in the offer. What's the offer? What are you giving me? Gong is telling me about them. I don't care about you. What about me? What about fulfilling my needs? That's one thing that outreach did well here. Improve prospecting, increase daily velocity, and measure success. Now, I hope that somebody searching for what it is that they're offering knows what all that means, because all that internal buzzword nomenclature BS that just a confused mind says no, it's going to repel people. Yeah. How was that, Jeremy? Is this helpful?
I love it. Love it. I'm going to pull up for a second. I know we only have a couple more minutes, and there's 2 things I want to talk about. I want to talk about this and one other thing. So maybe we'll look at this in a minute. But when we go to Gong, here's what we see. Any initial thoughts on this when we hit the page?
Yeah. So first of all, there's not a call to action. Oh, there it goes. It just loaded. And even that's not great. So they have book a demo in the header, but top of fold, there's nothing for me to do. There's no phone up. There it is again. Look at how slow this loads, dude. This is nuts. So
probably my fault.
I don't know that it is. I don't know that we're able to blame ISP. You need a page that loads lightning fast. Lightning fast. You're paying for traffic. And if it doesn't load within, a fraction of a second, people are going to jump ship. So here we have the primary call to action is book a demo. They have it in their header, then they have it above the fold. And then let's look at their offer. Conversation intelligence. Stop losing winnable deals. So they've coined their own term, I think. Conversation intelligence isn't a term that I'm familiar with. And now they're saying stop losing winnable deals. So then there's just way too much blocks of text here, man. Conversation intelligence is how sales leaders find out what separates the best from the rest and build a winning playbook. I'm confused. I don't understand. I don't know what the offer is. I don't know what you can do for me. I don't know what this is. Do you know what? I'm actually asking honestly. Do you know what Gong is or what it does?
I mean, only because I've come across them before, but not in this instance.
I have no idea what they're offering. So they need to go and simplify their offer down to the smallest point of understandable value at the very beginning of the funnel.
Yeah.
So it might be something like improve sales intake speed. You know what I mean? Like the easy, early, understandable, bam. Improve sales intake speed by 51% in 2 hours. Find out how.
Quickly, Kasim, I know you have to jump in 1 minute, and I want to just talk for 30 seconds on the drivenmastermind.com. What's going on here? What can people check out and expect? And there's I know some of these people. There's Steve Sims, there's Tony Grebmeyer, Vinny Fisher, Rich Goldstein, some amazing people on this page. I mean, Jason Fladlin's just a whiz at anything marketing. So talk about this for a bit before you have to hop off.
Yeah, they sunset War Room, which was my favorite place in the whole wide world, to be honest with you. It's the #1 marketing mastermind for 13 years. And Perry wanted to continue the legacy. So he reached out to us, asked if we wanted to partner. And we're going back to the roots of what War Room was. This is what I like to call mastermind with teeth. So if you want to make money, if you want to grow, if you want to scale, this is for you. You can't send your EA. I don't want to sit next to your kid. We're not here to be touchy-feely, heartfelt. Dude, all that's great. I love all that. All that kumbaya stuff, that's awesome. Somewhere else. If you want to grow, if you want to scale, if you want to learn to invest, this is the place where the sharks go. And if you can swim with us, that's all. And I mean, look at the faculty, man. It's a who's who, truly. And I'm not trying to repel people. I guess I kind of am. Trying to repel people. Like, if you can hold your own and you bring something to the table, we want you in Driven. If not, I hope you apply someday. But you got to go kind of earn your entrepreneurial stripes first.
Yeah. You got to hop. Kasim, thank you. Everyone check out sol8.com. Check out drivenmastermind.com. More episodes of the podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate you, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.